Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Anderson, should we be doing gain-of-function research?
I think fundamental biology research, which includes gain-of-function research, is important. However, such research should, of course, be done safely.
Was gain-of-function research being done, Dr. Gary, at the lab in Wuhan, China?
I have not reviewed all the research that was being done at the Wuhan Institute, so I don't really have a professional opinion on.
Do you have a professional opinion, Dr. Anderson?
To
On
my
that?
knowledge,
On that? Yeah, I know you got professional opinions about lots of things, but do you have one on that?
to my knowledge, there's no gain-of-function research, although there is work involving chimeric viruses, for example, as we discussed in our proximal origin paper.
Was the lab in China up to the code for doing the kind of research that you just described, Dr. Anderson?
I don't know about any of the codes, anything going on at the Wuhan Institute.
Would it be up to the, would it be, my understanding is it wasn't. Do you think it was up to the code necessary to do the kind of research that you think they were doing there?
Again, I can't talk to the code of the lab itself. I think what is clear from the published research from the Wuhan Institute of Virology was that a lot of this research was done at biosafety level 2, which I considered at the time to be insufficient, and today, especially given the diversity of related viruses.
So just to
that
be
we
clear,
have
you guys
found,
don't know whether they were doing gain-of-function research or not. You think they weren't. I think they were. You think they weren't. But regardless of that, what they were doing there, what the biosafety level at that lab wasn't up to the code it should have been for the research they were doing.
Doing this type of research at BSL-2 using bat coronaviruses is commonly done at BSL-2. The lab work, or the animal work, I should say, is done in BSL-3. Again, this is all
What level
available
lab
via
would
the-
you want? If you're doing the research, Dr. Anderson or Dr. Gary, what level lab, what level would you want, 2 or 3?
This would again typically be approved at biosafety level 2. However, as I said from the beginning, is that I believe, especially given everything we know, based on how many of these coronaviruses we have, that this kind of work should in future, via international regulations, be done at BSL-3.
Should be done at a higher level than it was done there. Correct. Is what you're saying. Got it. All right. And should it go through, we have this process, Dr. Gary, this P3 process, this approval process for this type of grant money to be used and this type of work to be done. Should it go through that process before it's approved?
I mean, in your hypothetical, yes. I mean, of course, we should follow the regulations.
Okay. So my understanding is American tax dollars went to this lab in China. Is that right, Dr. Gary?
I don't know I don't have any information myself about
I think commonly reported EcoHealth sent the money there. American tax dollars were used in the Wuhan lab, this lab we've been talking about.
Again, I haven't reviewed the financial transactions between the NIH and EcoHealth Alliance.
Okay. Dr. Anderson, just real quick, and I know you've touched on this earlier. So on January 31st, the now email that, somewhat famous email that you sent, virus looks engineered, virus not consistent with evolutionary theory. I think that was part of that email and comments Dr. Gary made, where it was what prompted the conference call. And then 4 days later, you come back and basically say, if you believe it came from a lab, then it's some crackpot theory. And what happened in that? I mean, that's a pretty dramatic change in 4 days. And I know you've talked about it before, but that's what I find so concerning is you went from virus looks engineered, not consistent with evolutionary theory, to you're crazy if you think it came from a lab, and that all happened in 4 days.
So that is a misrepresentation of what the email actually says. Let me just read that sentence, because I say the main crackpot theories going around at the moment related to this firing being somehow engineered with intent, and that is demonstrably not the case. I'm very specifically referring to the fact that this is engineered with intent, i.e. a bioweapon.
Okay,
at that time, I still
fair enough.
believe-
So you're saying there wasn't an intention to have it done in a lab, but so you're not saying it couldn't have come from a lab.
That is correct. At that time of writing this email, in fact, I thought the plausibility of this being a lab-cultured virus was still high. I kept that belief until mid to late February.
Do you think you've been strong on the zoonotic theory? Do you think it could have come from a lab, even today as you sit here?
Not as I said here today, no. I think the plausibility of this having come from the lab, given the evidence, I don't find that plausible at all.
FBI's wrong. People who disagree, people who think it came from a lab is wrong. The fact that American tax dollars went to a lab in China, a lab that wasn't up to code, should have been level 3, even based on what you guys say, wasn't up to code, doing, I think, potentially gain-of-function research, and it breaks out in that town in China. But somehow, no, it can't even be possible that it came from a lab. It has to be the zoonotic approach.
It is possible, as I'm saying. I don't find it plausible, or maybe I should say probable, given the evidence that we have available to us. Again, anything is possible, and as we are saying in the proximal origin paper and also in later papers, is that it is currently impossible to prove or disprove any version of the origin, whether lab or not.
Okay, thank you.